Hey everyone, good morning and good afternoon. So today I am with one of our team members, Catherine, and Catherine is fantastic. So the amazing thing, about Catherine is she is a medical biller and coder, and I wanted to bring her on for anyone that has some medical billing questions or concerns. And also, as you all know, we work with medical startups, so that's very important. Billing and revenue is extremely important. And if you are not focusing on that, then you basically have almost like a dead, business, right? So let's get started. So, Catherine, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll keep going.
Hi, my name's Catherine, and I've been in the medical field for a little over 10 years now. I'm focused more on medical billing and coding. I'm here to help you identify the opportunities that you can maximize your revenue through coding. A lot of providers need help with the new ICD-10s, modifiers, and diagnosis codes, and everything that you need in order to get your reimbursements from the insurance, and that's what I'm here for.
Awesome. So one of the things that we find a lot, Catherine, is, people are not always paying attention to the revenue that is coming in. So can you tell us just a little bit about, what should they, be looking for? Like give us just like 2 reports maybe that they should be looking for. And what are the things that like the actual categories maybe they should be looking for?
In reference to, it also goes by specialties, in reference to coding, in reference to CPTs and services rendered. You want to make sure that you're using the CPT that's going to give you the maximum reimbursement. And that's the key word always with coding. Which code is going to give me the maximum reimbursement? In reference to reports and reference to aging, what we look at is we make sure that when our bill is sent out, it's not going to go past 60 days within an agent report. It should be paid if it's a clean claim within the 30 days, 30 to 45 days max. If it goes past that, then you need to find out why, as reference to it being processed by the insurance. It's not a clean claim anymore. They may be requesting notes. That's something that you have to look out for when receiving your ERAs back from the insurance. What is the insurance requesting further information? If not, then that insurance should be processing your claim within the time allowed, 30 to 45 business days. Nothing should go past 60 days.
Correct. So if you are not getting payment or your payment is slow, you have to be able to, ask your billing team or revenue cycle director or manager exactly what is going on here. And this is one thing that I'm definitely seeing as we are building practices. A lot of people do not understand that revenue cycle management or the bill starts when the patient actually walks in the door. And Catherine, last week I actually talked about, when a patient walks in, you should always make sure that they understand their insurance and that it is also the medical practices responsibility to be able to explain their insurance. Some people have, $10,000 deductibles or whatever type of deductible, but it's important to know what that is. And we had a couple things that were happened last week, and a couple doctors got on and say, well, shouldn't they know? Well, they don't know. So are you going to be part of the problem or are you going to be part of the solution? And that is the biggest thing. I don't care what you think your patient knows. They're here for numerous things, right? So if you're working for or looking for, you're working with a behavioral health, center or whatnot, we all know that there's mental health issues that are happening. So clearly they're not going to know, right? So, I mean, also meet the patient where they are. If they're 70 years old, they're not going to know. If they're new to insurance, they're not going to know. So I always err on the side of caution that they don't know. So stop it with all of this. I'm not telling them about their insurance. That is your duty. What do you think about that, Catherine?
I completely agree with that because a lot of it, we use the term surprise billing. A patient shouldn't receive a bill after services are rendered and they weren't made aware of it prior to the services being rendered. Let them make that decision, because then they will also see that it was consideration given to the patient, and then most likely would have a returning patient. So once that patient gives you their insurance information and you're booking the appointment, you should take that moment to then go on and check the eligibility, check if there's a copay so they're aware, check if there's a co-insurance, that after the insurance processes the claim, the patient's going to have a co-insurance, and if so, how much. It's a percentage. It'll be 20%, maybe 10% out of what the insurance would allow. So you wouldn't know the exact amount for the co-insurance, but I would just make them aware, you're going to receive a bill after. For co-insurance, we're not sure of the amount, but just be aware. Deductible hasn't been met. Most likely the provider is not going to get paid, depending on how much is remaining. And if the deductible amount is higher than what the provider is going to bill out, to 9 times out of 10, the provider is not going to receive payment and is going to go straight to the patient's deductible. So they need to be made aware of that as well. So then they can't come back and try to fight that bill stating you didn't make them aware. So there also should be something when the patient comes in, after they're made aware over the phone, I would have a form that the patient would sign that basically states that it's been discussed prior to the visit, and if a bill is received, the patient agrees to pay. So all of that in writing will ensure payment to the provider and will also give that sense of security to the patient.
Exactly. And so again, with new practices and all of that good stuff, it's called also patient retention, right? So I understand, again, everyone's like, well, I don't want to explain to them their insurance. Well, guess what you do? Because that's how you retain patients. Not only are the patients receiving assistance from you, but they're also receiving education about how to take care of themselves as well, which also means what is their insurance. So let's stop doing this. I want everyone to stop. And if you don't have the means, then guess what? That's when you need to actually contact, somebody or an agency, like ourselves, right? You need to go ahead and look at how can you do better with your customer service. That goes back to, all of those good, I would say, soft skills that a lot of practices are lacking. I don't care if you have a sign up. It doesn't mean that they have to come to you, right? Mm-hmm. So again, this is a choice, right? I tell people this even, when the doctors or whoever wants people to work for them, people don't have to work for you. It's the same thing with patients. Patients don't have to come to you either.
Exactly.
It's a right.
And I've seen providers lose patients due to when it comes to collections and them having to contact the patient. I myself have been in that position, contacting the patient, and they're like, no one told me I was going to have a bill. And we try to explain to them that may be something that they should confirm themselves. But really, at the end of the day, the provider should be providing that information prior to. And, it's hard to receive payment from a patient if you did not make them aware. So that's something you just want to avoid going forward, avoid the headache.
So I also want to go through electronic health records or electronic medical records. And a lot of practices don't understand that you have to build these things. So yeah, they might come to you and you're saying, oh my gosh, I want all these features or whatever, what have you. But Catherine, can you explain just a little bit what actually has to be built, right? The software is only as good as what you put into it. So, I mean, if you want to talk about fee schedules or modifiers, so does an EHR always come with that information?
No, that's something that you should be putting in. Also, when entering the coding, you want to go off of what the medical records are. So that's another thing that also comes in with my position as being a coder. I would audit the medical records and I would look for the diagnosis that the doctor states, and I would then transfer them into a code. And the EHR does not give you the type of coding that you should use, nor does it give you modifiers. For example, we had a claim that actually came across denied and was asking for further information. Now, the provider automatically thought, oh, we were going to submit medical records. No, actually, when I looked further into the claim, it wasn't medical records. They were actually asking for a modifier that was missing on the claim. So it was a service that was rendered that actually needs it to be specified on whether it was the right arm or the left arm. So we need to apply the appropriate modifier, and that will signify which side it was. As when ICD-10 came into play back in 2015, 2016, they are very specific with the coding. They want modifiers that are going to tell you whether it was the pinky or the thumb. Like they want modifiers to tell you if it was telehealth or if it was in the office, hospital. They want every single detail. So that's where it comes in that the EHR does not always supply that information, and that's where the coder comes in.
Right. So again, you have to not only rely on the electronic health record, but you also have to rely on people, right? Nothing is really actually automated. And if you're just waiting for things just to be automated and you're going to write your little note and it's going to go through and it's going to be clean, you're going to lose. You're going to lose every time. You have to have those types of things in place, meaning that you have to have just certain steps, right? Somebody has to go over what you wrote. And then let's also give an example, Catherine, of how a lot of times we find people that are under billing. So let's kind of go through that.
So we have a client that's behavioral health. They're actually billing with the H codes, for example, at H2019, right? And you can actually get a higher reimbursement for same specialty with an evaluation code, the 9 codes, like a 90791, 90792, and so on and so forth. The 9 codes to give you a higher reimbursement than the H codes. So that was another thing we brought to the provider's attention and was able to get higher reimbursement simply by upping the CPT, the services code.
Right. So with that, again, codes change, modifiers change, especially through COVID-19. Sometimes the modifiers they were using were 95, right? Some of them were doing the GT modifier. Things have changed. So, and also there's different ways to bill different insurances, right? So Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they want a prefix at the end, right? You just don't give the whole number. There's also a prefix, like a 01, a 02, or 03. It depends on, how large your group or your family is, right? And that, that information. So I just kind of wanted to kind of go over that. That's why it is important. It is number one important that you have a billing company that you can talk to as many times as you can. You cannot have a billing company that is unreliable, where you cannot see, hear, or whatever, and they are only there for a little bit of time. Billing is every day, all day, right? So when people talk about, ghosting or they only bill on this certain day, it can't be that way. So can you kind of talk about that?
Yes, actually, you brought up a good one of Blue Cross Blue Shield. They are very specific, Blue Cross Blue Shield, in reference to the prefix. So if it's a family plan and you just put in the ID number for that family plan, they need the last 2 digits to signify which family member is the patient. Another thing with Blue Cross Blue Shield, this is mostly for my New York providers. When you submit a claim with Blue Cross Blue Shield and it's an out-of-state claim, you have to send it to a PO box of 3877. If it's a federal, then you have to send it to 3876. If it's a local, then you have to send it to 1407. So knowing these things can help prevent the payment basically being prolonged.
So with that, obviously a lot of you understand that what we're talking about is very technical, right? So when we're building practices or we come in and we find out that there's billing errors or we're doing some type of audit, these are all of the things that we are doing, at the same time. So we make sure that your revenue continues, as well as updating your fee schedules, as well as making sure that all of your modifiers and things are appropriate. Things have changed. So let's talk about this wonderful code that so many people like to bill, is like the Z000 number, that code. So what about that one? Because people love that one and it's like, they don't reimburse for it. So can you let us know about that one?
The reason why it's not getting reimbursed is because it needs to be more specific. So with the ICD-10, they want more specific codes, and any code that when you bring up, it'll have unspecified with it. do not use it. Don't even bother using it. One or two things are going to happen. Either they're going to get denied because they want a more specific code, or it's going to be sent to review for medical records. And those are two things that you want to avoid. Not saying the medical records are not accurate, but it's going to prolong the payment. So you want to avoid that. And of course, you want to avoid the denial. So you definitely want to use more of a specific code in reference to that one, or any code that it's unspecified.
So as you're, growing your business or you're starting, this is another thing that I always make sure that people understand is for your revenue. What's also very important is actually the credentialing, right? So you're not getting paid anything if your credentialing is incorrect. So let's just be straight right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your credentialing must be on point. If it is not on point, none of what we're talking about right now is even going to matter. It's going to be denied all day. So you have to make sure that what you do or whoever's doing your credentialing, even if it's yourself or if you hired some other people, that is on point. If it is not, you're not even going to be talking to Catherine because
Exactly.
will never be in play. So what kind of credentialing issues have you seen before when people assume that they are credentialed? What happens?
I've gotten where they assumed they were credentialed and the clearinghouse came out and rejected it, stating that there was further information missing. So either something of a license wasn't submitted, or they did submit a license that was already expired. So you have to make sure that you're on point with all of that. Make sure that you contact the insurance bank and make sure you review with them. Is there anything missing? Is this application complete? And get those. Another one is CLIA. With CLIA, I've gotten where they are only credentialed for a certain amount of labs. So they'll have where they're only credentialed for non-waived labs in the office. So then we have, regardless, you have to append a certain modifier for those labs to go through, and it's a CLIA waived. So you want to make sure that if you are performing labs in the office, that you are credentialed for all waived and non-waived. And sometimes the providers is not aware of that because they're not sure which lab they're performing is waived or not waived. And honestly, they shouldn't even have to worry about that part. They should only have to worry about rendering the service to the patients and taking care of the patients. And that's where we come in, where we make sure and we let them know, okay, you're not credentialed for this particular lab. So we want to make sure that we don't bill that one and we'll find another code for it. Or if he wants to, we make sure you're credentialed for all of them across the board. It's what the provider wants and what the services they're rendered. You have to credential accordingly.
So when you're doing all of these things, and all of you, even if you're not even in the healthcare field, as you can tell, this is very technical, right? There's so many places where things can go wrong. So when you are hiring people to either build your practice, do credentialing, and also any billing, you need to make sure that people also have insurance. I tell people this all the time. You should be able to ask them, do they have insurance? Because if they do not have errors and omissions insurance, you're in trouble. Does that make sense? So you can sue all you want, okay? But if they don't have insurance, that's like, so if someone's going to work in your home, right? And they're doing the ceilings, if they are not insured, guess what? Your ceiling just looks like crap, right? So it's the same thing, in billing. The next thing is what you want to look for is people that are always available. So many things happen during clinic. Clinic just doesn't happen one day a week. It happens all the time. So if you're not available, what we do with our clients is we make sure that they have access to our teams so that if there's something that's missing, they can literally, or they have a question really quick, they go ahead and they, hit us up on Teams, make a little question, and then we get back to them, as quickly as possible. And that's really, really important to be able to do so. So make sure, that you're doing that. I see a lot of people where their businesses fail just because of little things like that. Make sure that people are actually reliable and able to actually do the service. If it does not run off of their mouth, just like it does with Catherine's, then guess what? You've hired the wrong company because you can't wait when there's a bill that's messed up. It's now. So what about timely filing?
Oh, that's big. Yeah, timely filing is definitely something you want to avoid at all costs because it will cost you. And timely filing goes with certain insurances, it's usually within 90 to 120 days. You want to make sure that that claim goes out within, I always say, if you can get the claim out the same day the service was rendered, you're a winner. Because I know sometimes that's hard. The doctor has seen multiple patients in one day. He has to complete notes, and the notes are not completed. The claim can't go out. So if you can finish your notes and finish and get that claim out within that week, that's the best thing. If for whatever reasons is in your practice that you can't, you want to get it out within that month. You do not want to go past the timely filing rate. And honestly, you don't even want to go past the month because you're just holding back on your reimbursements, honestly.
And again, it's time, energy, money. So if you see a client and then your billers are not billing out for 3 to 4 weeks, that's a problem, because it doesn't give you time for any type of appeals or any type of issue to go awry. And that's another thing that we see a lot of times. Practices are closing due to timely filing. That's why I brought this up, with Catherine, because a lot of, when we're talking about building a practice, you're also building a foundation. So if you have all of these policies and procedures ready and you have your team that really understands, then these things will not be happening. And one reason why we are good at what we do is because we know the whole picture, right? We don't just have billers. We don't just have credentialers. We have people that are also understanding a complete workflow of a whole private practice. There is a difference. Okay. Yes. And when you're building a practice, you do not want all of these multiple vendors, because you, as the provider or the person that owns this company, you guys have to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And how do you know that when you're saving the world? That's what I want to know, because I know you're not going to know all that.
I agree 100%, because it always starts, it's a, like you said, it's a whole, but I believe also it always starts in the front. I've worked in the front, and I've worked my way to the back, and I've worked my way to being practice management. So I know it always starts in the front. A biller can only do their billing as good as the information that's collected when that patient calls for that appointment. And that information is collected from insurance information to scanning the card so that the biller knows exactly where the claim should be submitted. If the information was entered incorrectly in demographics, the biller has to correct that information. They have to correct the ID information. The name could be spelled wrong, but on the ID, it's a different name. All that information helps the biller to make sure that the claim goes out correctly. So it always starts in the front. You want to make sure you have a very strong front desk team.
So with the lack of strong front desk teams, which we do have a lot of times, and we do help you make sure that your front desk is strong, everything, you have to have people that are detail oriented. If they are not detail oriented, then you have a serious issue. And we have to make sure that, that's something that we can do, right? So we'll go through, we'll explain why does something happen and what happens, and then, basically go from there. But it's very, very important that you have a strong front desk team, because that is going to either set you up for success or it is not. So be very, very careful about that.
Nope. And that's pretty much in a whole.
Mm-hmm. So again, Catherine's going to come on here regularly, and we're always going to talk about something, but there's a couple things that I want everyone to also know. So we are a whole team. You don't see the whole team here, but we also have a team member and a partner, and her name is Shanae Moray. And Shanae has over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. This is something that I talk about all of the time. Also, for all of you out there, you have to be visible. You have to be visible on social media. And the only way that you can be visible and get those top dogs, those top, maybe even investors, if you are trying to go for a hospital, things like that, LinkedIn is going to be one of the best platforms that you can have. So one thing that Catherine and I are definitely a part of is Growth Academy. And if you want to learn even more and how to get, in touch with us and different things like that, you go to yougrow.club, and she will have a webinar on Saturday at 2 p.m. Now, what is the webinar about? The webinar is about LinkedIn, and it's about growth. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, why do I need that? Well, guess what? If you open up a practice and we don't know who you are and we can't Google you, then guess what? You don't exist. Okay. So we'll be talking about all of this stuff. There's a lot of things that go into making a successful practice. And one of those is making sure that you are visible. Okay. I don't care who you are. If I don't know what you do and I can't Google you from my bedroom, I'm not coming. Also, if I call you and the front desk is nasty and rude, I'm not coming. If you send me a bill for 10 grand and it's a surprise, I'm not coming back. You're going to sit there with that bill, because that's what a lot of you do. You sit there with that bill and then you got to write it off, when all that needed to happen was some education and some information. That's the problem here. So we got to stop this kind of stuff, that's happening. So I'm going to definitely end here. And is there any other things that you want to say or whatnot?
I definitely want to add in about the Growth Academy. I say there's always room for growth, because I continue to join. And every time I join, I'm always catching, learning, and just self-developing every time. So there's always room for growth. Always.
Absolutely. You can never stop learning. And that is one of the things that we continue to definitely tell others. Never stop learning. Always remember. And again, we'll be here on Wednesday and also on Friday. And again, stay visible, do what you're supposed to do, and let's have some good customer service, because that's another reason why a lot of people are losing a lot of business out here. Please.
That's another subject for another time.
All of that. Let's stop all of that. So we won't go too far into it. But again, you can reach us. We're streaming from all different places, even on, different applications. But Catherine will be back. I will be back, and go to yougrow.club, and you will also see us being a part of that as well. So I will talk to you soon, and have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.